Brian, Director at CM First. I want to thank very much to the CA Broadcom, TUI and Plex communities for co-hosting today's webcast, in which we'll give you some information on TUI Plex community update, and then have some several exciting lightning talks, and also talking about the 11th Fall Conference Planning Session. But first, I've got a poll question for the community, which is up on your screens here, and that's, given many things that are going on right now, what is your most top of mind IT topic? We'll have a number of days to be thinking about priorities and on our own personal lives and family, friends, as well as work and business. So please select one, either security, automation, modernization, / replatforming, DevOps, or other. So can we see the results now? So modernization, replatforming, clearly top of mind with just over half of our respondents, then followed by DevOps and automation, and other, as well as security. So interesting that security isn't higher. So modernization, replatforming obviously is looking out strategically and looking out a little bit more in the future. So that's good. I think it's a good portent that people are thinking longer than just the next few minutes. So I'd like to talk about today's agenda. I've got some information, and I'll turn it right over to the lightning talk speakers. So today, I've got the community update, and then Christoph will be talking about web services and change management for all IBM. And then Kiyoshi talking about Plex performance and SQL versus DDS performance. And then John Rhodes is going to show us a technique for doing open access analysis and deep discovery for CA2E. And then I'll come back to me. I'll be talking about the fall conference planning, and then we'll have a Q&A session. So let's get right into it. So regarding the TUI Plex and TUI and Plex communities, we were, I saw the splash screen there shows Raghu. It's not actually, he was not able to make it today, but we do have the Broadcom management team, which is the principal product manager, Pravesh Jha, and product owner, Vijay Kumar Desari. And so on the next slide here, Pravesh, they're managing TUI Plex and some other CA modeling products. So what's the state? Broadcom continues to support the both of these products under the category of enterprise software. Community, such as our own, needs to take the lead on user groups. Resellers are providing solutions for our smaller customers, and we and also other partners and other partners in Europe that are on the call today, we're here to help you. So no matter what you've got, whether it's something related to TUI Plex or something else that's bugging you, there's a lot of transition of people who are used to working at an office, going to work, are now expected to be working from home. We've been doing that as a company for for the last several years, but we understand that many of you, it might be a new thing if you've not been doing critical IT work. And so anyway, the point here is that we are here to help. In terms of roadmaps, Prahesh just sent me a message saying that we're making good progress on the TUI upgrade. There is no change to the timeline, and that literally is a few hours ago. We do understand that there's a lot on hold everywhere due to the crisis. We also have, I'm aware, I've been reaching out, to lots of people, and Christoph as well as in Europe. We know there's a lot on hold. There's also companies that are certainly forging ahead that had upgrades and enhancements, uplifting products to the latest versions and so forth that were on hold due to the crisis. Even people who have been off support for a long time are coming back to the platform and realizing it's not going to go away soon. As always, your questions can be posted on the Broadcom forum or go through your reseller. Those are the two best avenues to try and get answers. If you send me information, I'll work it too. So in a few months, 6 months, there'll be the 11th Worldwide Dev Conference. Our planning actually was in process before all this stuff happened. We've determined that it's going to be held in Austin, Texas. The days are going to be Thursday and Friday, 2 full days. We suggest you arrive Wednesday night, October 21st. The United States Grand Prix Formula One race is that weekend. It's going to be on that Sunday, Saturday trials. The conference is going to be a combination of discovery and hands-on. And we're going to ask you about remote, since that is a new part of the equation that we've talked about for years. But anyway, there's more information later today on the webcast, and I'll also provide you with a question on that remote versus direct stuff coming on. And next slide. So many of you, if not all of you, are aware that Broadcom has got a minimum revenue policy of United States dollars, $25,000 a year. We have a proposal into CA Broadcom to offer an affordable cloud bundle, and are in active discussions with Broadcom about this. So the concept is it would be an Azure cloud instance, and we can provide CA Plex with your compiler of choice. We also have our other products that we've developed for the Plex platform, Matchpoint and Web Client, Evolve IT. Now, obviously, CA2E is a different, different delivery mechanism. So that's TBD, but they are aware. We and others are making them aware of the importance to also be able to support the smaller customer in a cost-efficient and effective fashion. So just let us know if you're having any problems. COVID-19 is affecting every one of us. You probably look at the United States and say we're a little bit slower behind than the others, but we in Texas, as well as other states, have been sheltered in place here for a while, and we know that it's going to be through the end of April. So it is a difficult situation, but and sometimes Broadcom's hard to reach. I'm working with Broadcom on a number of different customers that are trying to figure out what to do, and if it's not a vanilla support call, Broadcom is offering that to us and to others to figure it out to make sure that the customer gets served. So we really are here for both the TUI and the Plex communities if you need it. We know some of you are very much self-directed. Others are relying on third parties and other people. The people are retiring, and jobs stuff that's out there is tough, but our engineers will help at no cost to diagnose issues and making recommendations. And we've made this offer to a number of customers already, and it's in general IT questions too, not just stuff that's specific to our business. If we can possibly help, we'll figure out something and find a way to get your needs addressed and diagnose issues that you may have too as well. So that's kind of those what I had to say this morning. And so the conference poll, since we've always considered this this idea about, you know, how much should we be doing remotely, if anything, versus the in-person aspects of the conference. And so now I've got another poll question for you on that. So there's a range of different answers here. We'd like you to select one of them. Do you want limited remote attendance or fully remote? As obviously short-term projects, this conferences this spring have basically had to go to full remote. Or do you want the traditional full in-person attendance, which we've done 10 times before? Or how about viewing the conference materials and the videos only, kind of a read-only or view-only mode? Okay, let's see what's on the minds of our audience members. So just under a majority, 48%, think that there should be a fully remote audience. And then viewing conference materials and videos only, followed by full in-person attendance, kind of traditional way, as well as limited remote attendance. Smaller is really the smallest. So we understand that that's going on. We'll have more, obviously, between now and next quarter's webcast to talk and flesh this thing through. And I'll have some more information again as we come back. But at this point, I want to let's put the conference aside and let's concentrate on some good lightning talks that will designed to stimulate your brain here while you're at home. So there we go. First up is lightning talk number 1 is going to be web services on the IBM I, and it's going to be led by Christoph Heinrich, who's actually our product owner of the product, and Mark Schroeder, our senior developer consultant. Take it away, Christoph.
All right, thank you, Mark. John, can you make me presenter? Okay. All right, so this lightning talk is about managing and deploying IBM I Web Services. So what we're going to talk about is Mark Schroeder. He's going to show you how to create web services out of 2E, and then how to deploy those web services on the IBM I using the Integrated Web Services Server, IWS. And then I will show you how we automate the management and deployment of those IBM I web services. So here's why we thought that the process of managing and deploying those web services on the I should be improved. Using the IWS, it's a bit of a challenge, not that it is a complicated process, but it involves a series of manual steps every time you need to install or deploy a web service. And you need to do that every time you install that web service again, in the same environment or in another environment, in your QA or production. Every time you need to go through those steps. And as we all know, manual steps, they're time consuming, they're potentially error prone, and we want to eliminate that. And in addition to that, when you use the IWS, there's no information stored about when a web service has been installed by whom and why. So there's no audit trace, and that can be a problem for your audit requirements, of course. And then there's no way you can add meaningful parameter names in that process using the deployment wizard of IWS. And the steps, hold on. Okay, just a second. I'm trying to switch to the next page here, here we go. So this is just a quick overview of all the steps you have to go through using the Web Services Wizard, and then Mark Schroeder will show you that in more detail, how that looks. So we went ahead and said, okay, we need to improve that process and automate that process. And the solution is a new module in CA Matchpoint. And probably many of you have seen Matchpoint either because you're using it every day or you've seen a presentation of it. Matchpoint is really a tool to manage your projects and your development processes, and also to automate all the deployments of your application changes. Be that on the IBM i or on the Windows platform, Matchpoint can automate the deployment to your environments. Whether your application is developed in 2E or in Plex or hand-coded RPG, doesn't really matter. So we went ahead and created a new module to deploy web services just as any other object in Matchpoint. And basically what you do when you use Matchpoint, you add the web service object just as any other object that you would want to deploy an RPG program or a physical file or a DLL. You add it the same way, then you have the option to give it a service name and define the input-output parameters and give it meaningful parameter names, and then you deploy it. And those first two steps you only do once in development, and from then on you deploy that service to all of your environments just by literally pressing a button. That's it. So we made it really easy and really quick to deploy those services. So, and of course, there's many benefits to this. First of all, everything is automated, makes it much easier and faster. And then within Matchpoint, we have a deployment history. So now also every installation or every deployment of a web service is now in your deployment history, and it's logged, and you see exactly when it was changed. We also enable remote deployment. That means you can deploy your web services on remote IBM i servers or LPARs. And you can deploy those services together with other changes. Typically, I mean, you have this web service program, but maybe there's additional programs that have to go out with that change, or maybe even database changes or any other objects that have to go and be deployed with that web service. You add all those objects to your change request and deploy it at the same time. We'll see how we can override the parameter names. And then I think most importantly, the deployment and management of your web services is now part of your DevOps process, part of your predefined process, and it's not something next to it. So all your approval processes or user rights and planning, the web services are now part of that. At the moment, with this first version, we support SOAP services, and in the next release, we also add the REST services to it. So with this, I would like to hand it over to Mark Schroeder to show you how to develop and deploy those web services using IWS. Can we switch to Mark Schroeder's screen, please?
All right, I'm showing my screen here. So what I want to do is I want to go through a real simple web service deployment. So first, you see that I have two objects here. I gave them names so they'd be right close to each other. I have a module, and then I have a service program. And this is a common way that 2E developers use for creating web services with both a module and a service program. A service program is sort of like the container for your module that goes into the web service. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and generate these just like we normally do. And I'm going to go ahead and create them. My 400 isn't the fastest, so it takes a little bit of time to do this. And one of the things that people may not know is you can also just do a ILE program now. You don't have to have a service program necessarily to create web services. So, okay, that is generated now. So let me go over to my web server. And I'll go ahead and refresh this because it's probably been sitting long enough that it needs to be refreshed on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this web service. I'm going to deploy it as a SOAP. So these are all the steps that you normally will have to follow. There's 9 total steps that we go through. So first I'm determining that it is a SOAP. Then I have to get my library name and my service name. So there's my service, and let's see, make sure. There we go. That's my, I'm just using the gen library in this case so that I didn't have to move any objects. That's one of the benefits of the match point process, is that it allows you to move the objects while you're doing this. I'm just going to call it wizard get user. I'll just leave the description the same. I could change the description if I wanted to. And then comes up a screen where I can determine my inputs and outputs. This is this only allows me to determine the inputs outputs. Like Christoph was saying, we can't determine what the names of these parameters are going to be within the wizard here. So then I just click on next, and I'm going to be using the server ID as my ID for running the service. And here I have to add libraries. Since I'm working within my gen library within my model, I have to actually add all these Y libraries, so I'm going to go ahead and add them in. If I was doing this into another environment that was like a QA environment or production environment, I would have a runtime library that I'd put instead. And it's taken its time. Sometimes it does this, it takes its time. There we go. Okay. And one more library. Now I'm going to go ahead and click next till I go to the next screen. And I could request some of this information to come back, but I very seldom will I ever do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and select SOAP 1.2 as my version of SOAP. And then I'm going to leave everything as it is. Then I click next. And that then is the end of my process for deploying these. Now I have to wait a little bit for the process to run behind the scenes, because what it's done is it's collected all the information. Now it's actually installing the service. And once we are done, then we can actually view what our WSDL looks like. Okay, it's still installing. So one of the things is, this is something like Christoph was saying, you have to do every time that you go through installing in an environment. So say you have a dev environment like we have here, we're installing it, then you go to maybe 2 or 3 QA environments, and each of them has their own server. You would manually have to go and install this in each of those servers. Let's see, it's still taking its time. And then, you know, to production, if you, there we go, now it's running. So now I can go ahead and view what the WSDL looks like. Now this isn't a test of the actual service, this just shows you that it's been installed, and it gives you the information from the installation. So that's the basic process you follow for each web server that you want to install a web service at. Now, if I was going to test this online, I would bring up something like SOAP UI, or there's some actual online tools that you can use to test the web service, but we're not doing that today. So, all right, Christoph, you can have the controls back.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mark. I'm going back to my screen, and I'd like to show you now how we do this in Matchpoint. I did record the process because I had some hiccups with the connection. I didn't want it to interrupt the demo. And so what we're doing here, I'm starting up Matchpoint. I see a list of change requests, and I'm creating a new one just to deploy one web service. I select the application, I give the request a name. That's all I really have to do. I could add more information, obviously, to the change request, but for this example, I'm just give it a name. I skip the approval process, put it into development, and then I'm going to add objects to it as any other object. At this time, it's going to be the web services objects. I import those from the IBM library. I can make that very easy, say everything that's changed in the last couple of days, because I know I only worked on this web service. And now I can go ahead and define parameters for this web service. So by doing this, we retrieved some information from that program, like the parameters. I give it the web service name, get user MP. I have the module information right there, and then I can do the same thing that Mark did with the parameters, but I can also add meaningful parameter names, which is really important if you want to expose that to service to third parties. And that is it. That's all you would need to do with the web service. What I can do now is I can install this service directly from here into the development environment, if that has not already been done. I just click on it. It's installed into my development environment now. The status is running. I can do the same test, see if it's responding with the WSDL file, so I know it's installed and working. So now development is completed. I can go ahead now and deploy that into my QA environment. These are predefined environments and a predefined promotion path. So Matchpoint doesn't know which the next environment is, and now it's deploying into that environment. It's moving the objects with it, and then uninstall the service if it's already installed, and then reinstalling it and starting it up. And so now this change request is in QA. Again, I can do the same thing. I can look at the WSDL file and see if the service is actually running. And I see that here on the web service info, the status is running. I can test it. And you saw all I had to do is just press the deploy button and everything is installed in my QA environment. And then of course I can do the exact same thing if I need to install it into the production environment. And this is now on another server. It's on another LPAR. So it's moving the programs to that other server and does the same thing, uninstalling the server if it's there, reinstalling it, and then start it up. So we have a running web service on my remote box. And that is it. It's I think it's made really easy, much easier to handle. Of course, you can add multiple services to a change request and then check all those services together. And it's up and running on the remote box. And so this concludes this lightning talk about web services on the IBM I. Oh, well, one thing I forgot. Yeah, of course, you can see the installation history of your web services. That I mentioned that audit trail in the beginning. So now we can see when it was installed and by which user the web service was installed. Okay. All right. So this is really the end of it now. Back to you, Mark.
Hey, thanks, Christoph. And now Kiyoshi is going to do lightning talk number 2 concerning SQL performance.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So I'm Kiyoshi. So here for the classic subject, Plex and SQL performance, especially related block fetch. This is probably forever subject for most of you. So, well, just agenda here. So SQL performance is sometimes poor. DDS works well, but the SQL doesn't. There's a reason, and then probably everybody knows some reason why. But we found kind of a solution for that, and to show the demonstration, the solution, and yep, that's about presentation. So initiation. So our customer converted DDS-based, Plex application to Java, which is very slow. It's not usable, so it's poor performance, and also some cases it doesn't return any data. So basically, it's a very serious problem. Well, of course, the database hold million or 100 million, lots of data, but it's not the excuse. It's just everyone else has that amount of data using SQL Server or Oracle. Well, they managed to working, right? So that's not the excuse. Okay, so just focus on block fetch, famous block fetch. So it has common flow is it does position GE, sometimes position EQ, and then do the fetch next. And then the next thing is what does is set row usage in the function logics. And then find out first 64 rows. If that occurs, it's 64. That's a common routine of standard block fetch. There's a problem for that position. So kind of a Plex original concept was simulating RPG set error, and read. So that's why sometimes it's kind of try to read more than prepare the record in the result set more than you want. Then you do throw away a record within the function layer, not in the database layer. So, and also, as you know, the DDS or RPG access, if you do the set error, it just move the cursor. It doesn't do anything to populating data to the result set to be the program can read. It's just a cursor, but for the SQL, it's an isolated instance, between the program and database layer. So it's prepare data to be read by program. So then that's overhead happen. And then if you don't tell how many records you want to have in the result set, it tries to do the best, which is a lot, maximum. So that's a cause of a main performance issue. And the Plex has concept of fetch next with variable. So under the cover, what's happening is kind of a silent filter, at the runtime. So that's also happening after reading data from database. It's kind of application layer. So that's also the problem. But RPG has built-in like a read with a variable concept. So that's kind of simulating there. Well, position GE problem for the key thing. So if you do the position equal with a restrictor, well, if you have only the restrictor one key, and then if you give the restrictor with one key, then a Plex generator equal something. So it's pure restriction happen in the database access layer. So that may be okay, but if you do the partial restriction and the partial positioning, like in this case, key 1 is a restrictor, and then position, key 2 is positioning, and then Plex generator like this kind of SQL, as you know. So the first part of in the red, my key, greater than parameter. So that's the kind of problem, because you just want to read, restrict with key 1. Then, second set of, this part, second part of a condition is enough, but the Plex kind of try to simulate set the error on the page down, next. So that's why it's generate always this SQL. And then what's happened actually at the program is the runtime doesn't return the data not to equal to the my key 1. So that's the filtering actually happening in the runtime under the cover. So this tell, it's for the second case of restrict with position, the result set has more data ready you are interested. Okay, so then after you pass that initial position, which is select statement in the SQL, the typical flow in the block fetch or TUI or even Plex or whatever it does is just get the record in the program, and then you decided if you like or not, and then set the the use row yes or no, and then only the yes is there kept, then that is populated to your output. So that means if you have a block fetch reader 64 record, well, if you're lucky or you have nothing extra condition, you just read the first 64 and then return. But if you have very strange condition or something unlucky case, it's need to go through sometime lots of data to fill just a 64. So that's another layer of the performance problem. Well, then sometimes many times you want to increase the machine power. I guess you try increase the CPU adding memory. Well, hardware acceleration help you. I mean, help your software to run comfortably, but it doesn't fix the problem. So it's just it doesn't change your code. So just maybe you gain, but it's not a solution. Okay, then I come to the right filter pattern for the to solve the solution. I mean this problem. So just make a pattern, but this is a kind of unique way to provide. So it's currently the block fetch and process group supported, and we just made it as XML. So you can import that pattern to your model. So not the inheritance, the library, group model, just a piece of parts. Well, basic idea, of course, we cannot do anything for the generator, but yeah, we just have a small runtime, Java runtime, to construct SQL based on the information coded in the action diagram. Okay, goal. So the problem is problem. So we just target the goal clearly defined. So custom filter is moved from AD to SQL engine, I mean fair condition, and the user pagination. So the pagination is the common technique everyone using. So it's basically you skip n row and read next m row. So I mean on the many website you have page like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then per page maybe have like a row 100, and then what it does is read 0 to start from 0 and then read the next 100, and then skip 100 record and then read the next 100. That's we could inject that kind of SQL on fly. Okay, so filter. So we could support the custom filter like simple a equal some value, or a like means start with or end with or control contains, etc. And also can be done the column and column comparison. And last one is kind of nested or condition is also available. So like you have a status field A, and then you want to filter M or X. So then if you don't have a bracket there, so that's completely different meaning. So we cover supported nested condition. Okay, well, pagination. So that's like I said, page 1 is skip 0 row next 64, and skip 64 rows from beginning and then read the next 64. So so yeah, that's pagination. It's a kind of everyone probably a lot of people doing outside Plex world. I mean, it's currently Plex cannot do, or even you try to using the executive, I mean, you can do executive SQL, but if you want to do select where or some other thing, it cannot do, because this statement has to be after the order by phrase in the SQL. So that's why it's relatively hard to inject this this information on fly. Okay, I do the demo quickly, but what we can do, so I defined some function to have a predefined filter. So name contains like, so it contains, so the email end with something. So it's generated as like percent data, and the higher status to combine, nested or, and age from 2, and yep, and also predefined column comparison, embedded column A not equal column B, and pagination. Okay, so do the quick demo. So I'm not showing the actual data, so just to focus the SQL embedded return from here. So I just change the block fetch to return the embedded, generated SQL return to the client. So this is the default. So I just changed the star because this part is very long. So just want to focus the where and the order by. Okay. Okay. So where is this is default one Plex generate, and then I have a predefined employee name not equal employee auto name. So that's embedded as a column comparison. And if I put the name contain, and then you see like employee name like star A, so that's contain. And then if I do the .com for the employee name, email, and then you get email like, percent like, and then maybe that's become too long, so I just remove a few of them. And then if higher status is contact, then a higher status equal 1 is generated, but I want to do contact and part-time, then you get the 1 or 2. So that's this bracket is important to keep, because otherwise it's a different meaning. Then if I say, so pagination is the next one, so just make it short. Okay, so right now I'm not sending anything, so that's why you don't see any pagination information. But if I send page size 100, just make a math easy. So you see the extra, the keyword here. So offset 0 rows, fetch next 100 rows only. So that means a pure, the fetch limiting the result set size 100, and then you just read from the beginning. And if I said 10th page, so then skip 1000, then return next 100. So it's like 11th page because it starts from 0. Okay, so that's a demo. So that's on fly. Using the pattern. So by doing this, okay, back to slide, sorry. Okay, so I don't go too deep for the how to use today because time is limited. But it's basically inherit the block fetch filter function and the analyze function and generated SQL, then modify action diagram as needed. So that's just basic plan. So I think most of block fetch you have with some extra condition can be done this way, can be converted or can be get benefit. And then as part of that, I use WebIT to detect call graph. And also the WebIT for the Java, C# or C++, it's actually picking up the SQL statement from the code. So you see that like what's kind of a SQL is generated for that particular function. So this kind of help to analyzing information for what's inefficient, etc. This example is pretty good one, good example, but sometimes you see the lots of problem. And also they have like a memo kind of feature, so we can memo about table. This table have 1 million record, and some suggestion, etc. can be memorized and then can work with the team. So we can do the same with the Plex model, but this is also available to do that, and then you see the more impact analysis and work in the one place. Some improvement graph. So, well, like a 3 minute to 5 second, or those are the kind of gain we could make. And I cannot explain with graph which didn't return, which takes forever, or it doesn't work. But those doesn't work scenario also returned reasonable time. So that's a kind of gain. That's maybe very extreme example, but if you're doing any program layer filtering, you get, I think, benefit. Okay, for the summary, yeah, it's currently implemented for Java and SQL Server, but we can expand for .NET or other database. And those are scale embedding part, like a pagination, or sometimes different database require different syntax, but we can consume that thin runtime layer, so that can be done relatively easily without mess around the action diagram. Okay, I'm gonna see the demo for the how to use more detail, like a Plex point of view, then maybe contact us. Yeah, that's about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiyoshi. Now, John, we got your third lightning talk, Evolve IT and access for CA2E. So why don't you get started? Thanks.
Yep, sure, Mark, thank you. Yes, I'll try to keep this brief. I know we're running out of time here. I'm going to talk about the Evolve It latest release that is supporting CA Plex, CA2E, and RPG, and also a kind of exciting development we have around open access for CA2E. Okay, so let me jump into it. So some of you have seen this product. Some of you may be aware we're also a mainframe company. We support people with very large systems on mainframes, IBM Z platform. And they have really, really massive applications. I know people on TUI and Plex have pretty big applications, even massive, but folks on mainframe really have massive. And we developed a product some years ago to help with that, COBOL. And recently, in the past 18 months, we've adapted it to the CA2E, CA Plex, and IBM I environment. And really what we're trying to do is provide some information for analysts and architects and even developers on how their application is structured with statistics and metrics, be able to find different objects in the model, be that programs or tables or columns, see how they're connected, and also help you estimate. So I know a lot of you are looking at replatforming and modernization, and estimation is a key part of that. We have a key part of the tool that does that. I'm not going to show that today. I'm just going to talk about new features, but if that's an area of interest, happy to talk about it later. So there's a lot of analysis tools out there, of course. You have things like Hawkeye and others. We are special because we look at things in 3 ways. We look at not only the application, deep source analysis. We look at all the RPG generated, the Java, C#, C++, or whatever it is. We also look at the model, and we kind of marry the two together. So you have your Plex model with all its inheritance and complexities, married with the code it generates, or your TUI model in the same way. And lastly, we look at the application configuration. So we're looking at the CLs that are connected to your RPG application, for example, or how your menu is connected to your application, and let you do analysis on that as well. So we've got kind of 3 areas going on there. Use cases are certainly many. I think we polled our customers, and A lot of them told us they're using it for understanding primarily. That could be for new developers or younger developers that are coming on the team, maybe remote teams. Replatforming is a strong number 2. To understand the application, how it's constructed, do some things like Hiroshi was showing you about restructuring for SQL performance. Or maybe you're having to move things that are hand-coded in RPG to a Windows platform and need to recode those. Performance in general is also up there. And lastly, business rules is an important aspect as you're implementing RPA, robotic process automation, web front ends, things like that. Maybe you need to move business rules out of the 2E or Plex application into the front end application. Okay, so we have some new features that have just come out. We have version 11 that just was released, and version 11.1, which is coming out next month. We're going to support CLP, RPG, and DDS parsing. That's been released. Things like dynamic properties and analysis within call graphs. Some call graph improvements around vertical and horizontal views, showing hiding nodes, etc. Looking at source code and message object usage, that's often very difficult within Plex and 2E to find where those impacts are. And lastly, SQL statement extraction is another feature. So I'm going to show this. Let's try to show this live real quick. Keeping it very brief, of course. Okay, so I can kind of go into my, in this case, it's a Plex model, go in and see things like a change request table, do some analysis on it, and see, well, here's all the call graph programs that are connected to my change request. And I can quickly get a graph out of that and show how the table in this case is connected to all the functions in the call graph and where the updates are and where the reads are. So we got like three functions reading, one function that's inserting the change request in this case. Okay, so that's kind of how people use CMOWALT for CA Plex and also for 2E. I do want to show you the 2E side of things. So we've recently, well, of course, things time out. We have these live demos. So if I can get that back real quick. Well, I'm just going to move on just in the interest of time, but we have the 2E analysis is really up there with the Plex now. So you can analyze your 2E model and see how things are connected and have that connects to the RPG and the COBOL in there. Okay, so things like showing how things are connected within the call graph. We do have vertical and horizontal presentation of the call graph. We can do finding and showing of hidden objects. So in case you may want to hide all the system objects in 2E or all the date objects in Plex, you can either hide and show those with a checkbox. Searching, so if you have a diagram, some of these diagrams can have hundreds, or even thousands of objects, and finding things on them is necessary. So now we can do a text search and find the actual node where you're looking for. And this is showing how message objects are now supported. And lastly, the SQL statements. So that's kind of a real brief overview of how we're improving things. I had another topic I'm going to go over briefly as well. REST API for CA2E. Really, as 2E developers know, the 2E model is not very open. In fact, it's closed. There's no official access to it. You have to either go to the internal files or you have to go off reports to really get information about the model outside of the 2E interface. And a lot of us have done different things to go and read those tables and get information out of there. But it's not a very standard way, and it's like we're reinventing the wheel each time we do that, okay? And sometimes for action diagrams, that's really difficult. And we feel the time is right now to provide some open access and to collaborate with other folks on accessing the 2E model and getting information out of it for understanding and for modernization. So we're going forward with a open source initiative to make 2E model open, okay? Seeking collaborators there. We've made some progress already ourselves. We're providing some Java-based REST APIs, and we're going to provide, right now, we have some object information and some data model information available right now and working on screens and action diagrams. And yeah, we'd like some help from others in the community on that. Okay, so there's some information there. And lastly, some information on how we're able to get information out of the model. In this case, the object is agent, it's a file, and there's showing what's there. And just some more information there. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into details here, but I'm hoping I get some interest and we get some connections with people that are interested in helping us build this out, providing this to the community. Okay, and a lot of possible use cases on using this type of open access, I think. All right, so I'm going to leave it there, and I'm not going to really give you much time, Mark, to finish things off, but let's maybe talk a little about the conference.
I think that's okay. We're going to go right into the fall conference planning. So you kind of read our minds about being full remote. I'm going to advance one more screen there, John. So, we're looking at a 2-day event, and as you've perceived, who knows what's going to happen in October. We're certainly going to be responsive to that. I just want to let you know that we're prepared, whether we go for remote or in person or a mix or whatever, that we're going to deliver what the community wants and what the user groups are expecting. We have, this time, we're broadening the concept of the conference to include more than Plex and 2E developer DevOps. Our slogan is it's going to be, it's a mid-range conference, a race to the future, and a deep learning confab. So, like I said, a day of lecture and a lot of interactive stuff, and then a day of hands-on lab and down and dirty. We want to include concepts for the mid-range that are overdue but highly relevant: robotic product process automation, security, IBM I. All those kinds of things we want to include. So at this time, you've probably seen this slide before if you've been in the community for a while, as I'm looking for speakers. I will handle sponsors as I've had for the last 4 or 5 of these conferences, but I do need help on the speaker side. We always do. I mean, we have got an idea. Every one of us on this call has got an idea, a story, or a tip to share. And it can be about just something that you're comfortable with on IT. We've had people add to the to the features list on these solutions and add to best practices, and also telling us something that didn't go that well, about what not to do and different ways to approach automation, security, test, etc. Anybody who does want to call will get a free conference pass. If it's virtual, we'll give you another gift in addition to that. And also, we've got a special Austin-oriented unique gift for all of those who do contribute to the both to the speakers and also to the shape of the agenda. Again, the idea there is we just want to make sure everyone gets full value. And I'm at this time, John, I'm sorry, I'm out. We're over time. I think we can organize the. Let's put this SaaS question up. There we go. So if there was a SaaS offering for CA Plex or 2E, what would your, just off the top, you have what you've seen this morning, what would your interest level be? I know some of you are dyed in the wool on premise. Others that are a little more open, especially when we look at where the world is headed. So very interested, some interest, or policy says you can't do that, or you just prefer on premise, so you're in control of your more in control of your own destiny. So there's looks like there's 2 schools of thought here. That we've got big chunks of people, 85% either have some interest, depending on price, capabilities, etc., or that we just prefer on premise. So company policy, that's interesting that that's 13%. I would think perhaps that's a little bit lower, but the world's changing, so got that. And I know I'm very low on being very interested. So okay, for the people who want to stay on, we'll give it 4 or 5 minutes of questions. Interest time. So John, can you tee up the question?
Sure, I'll go for the first one here. We are attempting to upgrade from Plex 721 from Plex 6.1. We've run into roadblock after roadblock, a little help from Broadcom. Okay, can your organization contact me so we can move on to upgrade? So I'll say absolutely. I don't know how many upgrades we do a year, Mark, but it's many, and certainly can help on that aspect.
We do everyone that Broadcom can't do.
Yeah.
Or is unwilling to do.
Second
so
one.
We'd be happy. Yeah, we'd be happy to assist.
Question from Mark Schroeder. Wouldn't the Y or Christoph, wouldn't the Y create web service command do the same thing that was done manually? I guess that's referring to web services.
Yeah, the TUI Y create command would do something similar. The benefit of this is it actually puts it within your whole DevOps process. So you're not just creating the web service, you're actually putting it into your system and into your process and continuing on with that. So that's sort of why we did this. And we've actually seen that a lot of shops actually don't use the command. They actually do use the the wizard instead.
Okay, next question. Is there a resource or site where we can get up-to-date documentation on CA2E, including web services and SQL? Mark, do you want to take that? Mark Schroeder?
Yeah, Broadcom is actually putting a lot of the documentation online now. So you can access it online. I guess I'll get the link and make sure that we send it out with the information here. But I have accessed it online at Broadcom itself.
Okay, the last question, I guess more of a comment. Why are we talking so much about TUI? We need more on Plex. And that's a good comment. Let's say we try to do a balance. We try to cover both topics in all the community webinars. Sometimes we skew more to TUI, and sometimes we skew more towards Plex. So I think this time we did do a lot on TUI. Of course, Kiyoshi did some on Plex, but I think next time we'll focus more on the Plex side. So we try to kind of alternate and give everyone in the community a balance, realizing a lot of people have both products. So maybe there's a couple more, but I think we can address those with email.
Yeah, we'll send up a follow-up email out after this to all who have attended. And also we'll invite you to our next quarterly, which will probably be in June at this time frame, and perhaps will be under different personal circumstances by that time. In the meantime, please, everyone, for you and your families and your teams, please stay safe and shelter in place out there until we get through this thing and it's safe to move around and hang out with each other again. Thank you, and until next time, this is your CA2E Plex community signing off. Bye-bye now.